I get all these shows confused.
They're all confusing. So I posted up my take on the future of television on Patreon in my weekly column there. And I surprised myself because I wrote out kind of what I thought I wanted to say. And then at the end, I'm like, well, this might still be confusing. So let me give you an example. And I wrote out a little scenario of it's the year 2021 and this is how my television works. And I'm like, actually, I really like this idea. I don't know if I'm going to be right, but I kind of like the way it all went down because it sounds like it'd be really easy to use if someone develops it properly. None of that stuff is never right, though, because, dude, there's always the unexpected thing that comes along and screws up your prediction. You know? So I know we got some AMD fans out there in the audience, and Roger's been digging into Threadripper just for you.
I by digging in, catching up on everyone's take.
Yeah.
On it. It's pretty.
It's like, it's like a meta study. You've been looking at all the different reviews.
Yeah. It's like getting the sample. It's like getting the sampler platter at Denny's, where it's not just all eggs.
The fisherman's platter at Red Lobster.
Is that I never heard?
That's the one that had like shrimp, scallops, fish, oysters, everything fried.
Yeah, that's the only way to get it so it won't be gross. I can imagine. Ugh.
They're better now. They do a lot more steamed fish than they used to. It used to be everything was fried. That's all they had.
But you know why? It's because overcooking fish is the number one thing with seafood, other than having seafood go bad and then you try to pass it off as still edible. But,
hello, boys.
Oh, there you are. How was your adventure? I mean, rebooting.
It was a reboot tastic, man. PCs. Oh wait.
Oh, PCs.
Always
don't get me started.
Barrel of monkeys. I stopped playing the Hearthstone.
Did you get to the end of the first wing?
I did not. No, I didn't get a chance.
I only did the prologue.
I really like those solo adventures. I really hope that they do more of them on a more regular basis.
Yeah, I like that too. I've always liked those a lot. I've even done hard mode for a couple of them.
I would actually really love if that kind of replaced Tavern Brawl, and you just did
do adventures.
Yeah, and just do the different variations. Of
yeah. Because it's kind of the same idea of making up decks and everything. I love that, being given a deck and just like, here, just play. Because creating decks is a skill I'm not as good at on my own.
I can understand where they want to make you work that muscle, though.
Yeah, I know. And it's good. I'm actually getting better at Arena now.
Yeah, if you ever wanna build decks together, Tom,
let's go build decks together, Justin.
Each other our dicks.
We'll get Paul Spain back from New Zealand.
New Zealand, which is how he would say that.
Yeah. Not just him. We're not picking on Paul. That's just how you say deck in New Zealand.
Says things like that.
Who does?
All of New Zealand.
Yeah, all of them. All of them. We're painting them with a broad brush.
How you doing, Raj?
I'm doing well. Other than my kid being sick and
no. What's the sickness?
I don't know. She just upchecked this morning, so I assume a flu or some type. We were at a tot lot the other day. And I'm assuming that was just filled with germs.
Well, there you go.
Germ bags.
Yep. Little petri dishes running everywhere.
Yes, this is 3 days beard growth. Actually, no, a little bit more than 3 days beard growth from whenever I shaved it last week. This is about a week.
Well, let's get started, shall we?
Let's do it.
Here we go.
The Daily Tech News Show is brought to you by people like me, not outside organizations. To learn more, go to dailytechnewsshow.com/support.
This is the Daily Tech News for Thursday, August 10th, 2017. I'm Tom Merritt, Justin Robert Young alongside. we both pulled ourselves away from the new Hearthstone expansion long enough to research some tech news and talk to you about it today.
You are now watching the Frozen Throne, is what Tom and I were saying to each other earlier, but we have become professional, and we will deliver to you the best tech news possible.
Now, you can tell us what you think of that anonymously thanks to the Sarahah app, which is the hot new thing. It only launched like back in February in the Middle East, and it is the latest app to take the world by storm with anonymous messaging. And Justin and I are going to talk a little later on about why does this keep happening? They never stick around, but they always capture the imagination for a short period of time.
Yeah, we want it so much that we keep eating it and spitting it right back out.
Producer Roger Chang is with us as well, and he is going to check in a little bit later on Threadripper. The AMD reviews are out for Threadripper, and he looked at a bunch of those different reviews and will give us kind of a bird's eye view of what's going on. At least we hope so, since he just dropped the Hangout moments ago. But he'll be back. Let's start off with a few tech things you should know. Kaspersky has withdrawn its complaint to antitrust regulators in Europe over how Microsoft handles updates for competing security software. Microsoft did enough to satisfy him, promising to work closer with security companies in advance of Windows updates, giving them more transparency into release schedules, etc.
Yeah, this is obviously whenever you get into kind of regulations in Europe, this is an interesting place to be. But Kaspersky remaining in the news on multiple fronts. DeepMind and Blizzard have publicly released a toolkit that lets researchers teach abstract skills to AI using StarCraft 2. The kit includes recorded pro matches, isolated gameplay elements, and an API that lets an AI play StarCraft 2 like a human would.
Yeah, so this is kind of a cool tool because the thing that StarCraft 2 teaches a computer is how to deal with ambiguity. So that API means they can't see the entire board, right? Just like you as a regular player would.
I think it's yours, Tom.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Power went out in Roger's neighborhood. So we'll see if we get him back. Twitch launched the full version of its desktop app for all users on Windows and Mac OS. The app is an evolution of the Curse app and includes everything from the Twitch website, along with some special features, chat rooms, and video calling. You might download it and check it out.
And Benchmark, an early investor in Uber, has filed suit in Delaware Chancery Court alleging that founder Travis Kalanick committed fraud, breach of contract, and breach of fiduciary duty. Benchmark holds a seat on Uber's board and accuses Kalanick of trying to pack the board to allow him to return to Uber as CEO.
Yeah, the board denied that was going to happen yesterday, but the rumors have been flying that Kalanick himself had been telling folks he was Steve Jobsing it, just going to take a little tour away and then come back. And Benchmark very firmly saying, no, we are not going to allow that to happen. Now, here are some more top stories. Facebook rolling out a new version of its video section renamed Watch to select users in the U.S. Now, some videos are episodic and broken down into categories like most talked about or what's making people laugh. Users can subscribe to updates from their favorite shows, chat with other viewers while they're watching them, and connect with creators through groups. Facebook is kind of playing down the fact that they funded some of these shows, but they say that anyone can create one, and the revenue split is 55% to the creator. Shows come from places like Tastemade, Major League Baseball, Mike Rowe, Billboard Magazine, Nat Geo. The list goes on.
So Facebook's in an interesting position if they want to move into high-end content, because obviously the discovery mechanism that they're going to have the best luck with is Facebook. Everybody sharing these stories and them being able to weight them so more of those posts get into more people's feeds. But they need to have some kind of velvet rope area to distinguish these this video content they're paying quite a lot of money for from a random video of somebody reenacting Star Wars Episode 3 with a sock puppet. And that's what this is. Whether or not people want another element of Facebook is the question that everybody has to this point, or Facebook has to this point not been able to answer conclusively.
It's an interesting step because the look that I can tell from what we've seen so far is higher production values than, you know, somebody just outside on their phone. Stepping up the planning and production of live events to make them look a little better, but not going so far as to make these cable TV like in all respects. They're a little shorter. They're a little more informal. They're trying to keep that YouTube creator vibe going on, but they're also not competing with YouTube at its base level. They're neither YouTube nor YouTube Red, neither fish nor fowl.
No, if anything, if you are going to peg this in the Facebook rips off blank kind of descriptor, it would be sort of 50-50 YouTube and Netflix. They want big name people doing original content that you think of as a Facebook original, promoted by their Facebook pages, and yet not be just only content that they get from other places or high end.
Even then, like, they're not going for Chelsea Handler, right? They're going for Mike Rowe, and that is not a criticism of either one of those, but one is a Conan O'Brien level talk show, and Mike Rowe is a little more off the cuff, and people like that. So it's, I would put it like somewhere between, I don't know, between like a high level YouTube MCN and Food Channel.
I'll tell you what, I'm with that. Consumer Reports has removed Microsoft-made Surface laptops and tablets from its recommended list. A reader survey found 25% of Microsoft laptops and tablets had reported reliability problems in the first 2 years of ownership. Problems included freezing, shutdowns, and unresponsive touchscreens. Microsoft says it does not believe the survey results accurately reflect Surface owners' true experience. Tom, it's 2017, and over the past 5 to 7 years, Consumer Reports has gotten into a few very big public firefights, specifically with Apple, Tesla, and others. What do you think of Consumer Reports now, as we have yet another firefight raging between a tech company?
I mean, this is Consumer Reports doing their job. Their job is to say, we don't care what you companies think because we get no money from you. We are going to hold your feet to the fire and tell you why. And I think that's the key here is Consumer Reports isn't just saying we downgraded your rating because you're not as good. They're like, we saw this response from these people, and so this is why we're doing it. And Microsoft can say that they don't see the same thing and try to get them to change it as long as they provide evidence. That's what happened with Apple. With Apple worked with Consumer Reports to say, okay, what is it that you're seeing that we need to change? They changed it. They got their recommendation back. I think there is, this is not evidence-based, but I think there is a shortage of quality in some of these devices. I think a lot of the attention is being paid to phones particularly, and some of the QA is maybe slipping or maybe just not as prioritized, because I definitely have some of these problems with my Surface Book. I wouldn't say 25%. I would say occasional problems. It doesn't work exactly as I would like it. I have had more problems with my new MacBook Pro than I can remember having with previous MacBook Pros. The first one I got, I had to turn in. TG Stellar had the same problem with a Mac, an iMac Pro or I may have the model wrong, but with a Mac that he bought in Slack. Allison Sheridan had a problem with her MacBook. So it's not limited to Microsoft. I think across the board, companies may just not be keeping the quality setting as high, and I hesitate to accuse them of that, but I suspect that it's something worth looking at.
Well, I mean, if you were going to play detective, you could probably point, like, what's the biggest thing that's changed over the past 10 years in technology? China becoming far more open, and the runs that they have to create being that much more. There's just more demand for a lot of this stuff.
Yeah. And if you're in charge of QA at a particular place, then hey Roger, welcome back.
Hello.
If you're in charge of QA at a particular place, then you're going to look at phone first, right? You're gonna make sure that your phones are working, and phone quality is really high. That's why I think I don't know. Again, this is all just speculation on my part.
The counter argument is with Consumer Reports is that they are more prone to things like this now. And I don't have the evidence to say whether or not they have made more of these kinds of moves, but it's undeniable that the press they have gotten around them has been bigger because they're no longer the only watchers on the wall.
Yeah.
You know, there was a point in which them as a Consumer Reports as an organization that went out and took surveys and has data was incredibly valuable and important. But in an era now where we have so many eyeballs on technology, every single place that you buy something has a star rating. Amazon is curating what unfiltered buyers are thinking about what they have. That maybe Consumer Reports is not quite the brand it used to be, and they are now more prone in the same way that the Washington Post and the old gray lady of the New York Times are becoming more BuzzFeed. Maybe Consumer Reports, the staid watcher on the wall, is now prone to a little bit more histrionics than they would have otherwise. That's the counter argument. I'm more on your side though, Tom. I think that they just get this data. If anything, I do think that there might be a different model that they can adopt, much in the same way that like security researchers have exploit ethics, where it's like, hey, look, we're going to go to the companies first. We're going to document.
They do that. Consumer Reports does that.
They do?
Yeah, but they just go to the public at the same time. And I think that's fair. I mean, if you don't like what Consumer Reports is doing, you can tell exactly why. And that nothing has changed there. I think what's changed is you nailed it. There are just way more sources for you to look at, some of which have better expertise in dealing with these things than Consumer Reports. So they could say, we have a 25% reader survey, but somebody like the Wirecutter can go and dig in and find out why. And say, the problem is then the amount of thermal paste on the back of this or that, right?
I guess that's my point, is that maybe the onus is on Consumer Reports because now we have a lot more data out there. And these companies are probably more willing to, like in Apple's case, they're more willing to share the data so they don't get this kind of press going forward.
I would argue that Consumer Reports is operating no differently than they did in the 80s and 70s. It's just that we have way more information than we used to compare them to.
Exactly. But that's the point. Whether or not it's cool that they're still acting the same way they do.
Scientists at the University of Washington's Paul Allen School of Computer Science and Engineering have proven that code can be embedded in DNA that can target a buffer overflow in sequencing software FastQ. So wrap your head around that. They construct the DNA in a way that when FastQ sequences it, it causes a buffer overflow and allows a malware attack launched from the DNA it is sequencing. Malware is injected into the software as a result of attempting to sequence the malicious DNA, and the procedure is just a proof of concept. So on the one hand, this doesn't mean that DNA can go out and be created and cause all kinds of sequencing problems. First of all, you'd have to get the malicious DNA to be sequenced. Somebody would have to agree to do that or fool them into doing it. But also, they had to change FastQ. They had to introduce a vulnerability for this buffer to make this happen. So the off-the-shelf FastQ you could download today, it's an open source program, would not have that vulnerability in it. Also, they turned off address space layout randomization, which is a preventative measure that mitigates against these kinds of attacks. So on the one hand, you can say, well, this wouldn't happen in the wild because people leave ASLR on and FastQ doesn't have this vulnerability. But the point here is that they were able to do it. This is the first step of like, could we actually construct DNA in a way that it would program the sequencer that is sequencing it? And the answer is, yeah, it's possible.
So we're all going to die. Thank you for letting me know that I can add DNA malware to the list of nuclear holocaust.
Well, it doesn't work the other direction yet. It doesn't allow the DNA to infect you, Justin. It's just going to affect the sequencer.
Nope, Tom, I read this and you explained it clear as day. We're all going to die by way of DNA hackers.
The summer of sharks has become the summer of mutant sharks suddenly.
NBC will shut down its Seeso.
Oh, wait. I'm sorry. Before we go on, Dr. Kiki's on the show tomorrow, and she was I mean, she's the nicest kind of angry. I wouldn't even call it angry, but she was like, oh man, I want to talk about the DNA sequencing attack. So send us your feedback on this. What are your fears? What do you think? Feedback at dailytechnewsshow.com so we can talk to Kiki about it tomorrow.
Talk to Kiki will know far more than I do. Now, meanwhile, we can talk about something that I do have some feedback on. NBC will shut down its Seeso comedy streaming service later this year. The service launched on January 2016, but laid off staff in June of this year. Seeso originals Harmon Quest, My Brother, and Me, Hidden America with Jonah Ray, and the Cyanide and Happiness Show will move to the VRV streaming service. This has not been around long. It was a lower priced offering, and certainly it seemed to be experimental even at the time. And yet it did something that I think was very, very interesting. They went to the world of podcasting, and specifically with people that had built-in audiences, and they said, hey, let's make bigger, interesting kind of television style programs.
It's not that different than what we were talking Facebook doing earlier. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. With the only thing being that Facebook is pulling largely from people that have Facebook installation bases, and Seeso was trying to piggyback on, the free advertising of Feral Audio and Nerdist. And I don't know where, I think me and my brother and me is on Feral as well. Anywho, they are now shutting down. It seems like a bit of a bailout because they're not even letting these programs run their course on Seeso, which for a subscription service you'd think would be a no-brainer. But Tom, you had a theory on why that's happening.
Yeah, I think what we're seeing right now is a version of companies trying to embrace the new without losing the money and benefit of the old. And it's always a tricky business because the old is going away, but if you move too fast, you undercut yourself and you lose the benefit of being good at the old. And what NBC was doing here, in my opinion, was testing the waters, saying, okay, we're not going to take our premier programs off of NBC and put them on a streaming app yet, but let's put some good stuff. Let's put old episodes of The Tonight Show. Let's put Saturday Night Live on here. Let's get this high quality content so that there's originals here, but it's not the same originals that we're spending our money on. And let's experiment and learn how this business works in an almost risk-free environment. We're not putting the NBC name. It's called Seeso. And we're not putting NBC's premier programs on here. So let's try it. And they got to this point, and my guess is they said, great, experiment over. Let's wrap this up. And now we can do it right. And I would not be shocked to see an NBC-branded service along the lines of CBS All Access, along the lines of what Disney is mentioning with the Disney Pixar streaming service coming out of NBC to follow this. I mean, NBC is known for good comedies, and they've got a great backlog of them that they have rights to. I can't imagine that they wouldn't take what they did with Seeso and parlay that into a bigger, more NBC-branded service.
So is the issue here then that Seeso is too cheap? Like why not just rebrand Seeso as Seeso's now the NBC app? And congratulations, you're already subscribed to it with whatever thing you have. And we already have a bunch of people that are excited about the process because you have loyal fan bases with, by and large, well-reviewed shows like Harmon Quest, My Brother, and Me, and the Jonah Ray Show.
I mean, it's a good question. One answer is I'm wrong, and that's not why they're shutting Seeso down. Maybe it's a total failure. Another answer could be that executives get a little weird about putting names on things, and they're like, My Brother and Me is great, but we don't want to put the NBC name on that. That's a separate thing. So I don't know. And maybe it's just the way the deals were constructed that they weren't allowed to change this into something else without getting everybody to agree. And so it's just easier to shut it down and start over from scratch.
Yeah. I would also say that people very, very, very rarely react to saying, oh, wait, I get more content. I'm very happily going to pay twice the price.
Yes. No, exactly. That's a big part of it, too. I hadn't even thought of that. Just changing will cause a lot of people to be angry, but shutting down and starting is perceived as a different thing.
Yeah, specifically when they'll be able to hit everybody with the email saying that the brand new NBC app is now live.
Not to mention, they may have restrictions on what they can do with Seeso that they agreed to because they knew it wouldn't grow very, very fast, very far, that they don't want to have for NBC programming. Every year, the U.S. FCC is required to determine if broadband service is being rolled out quickly enough. Recently, both mobile and fixed broadband were considered separately because the FCC had determined they were equally necessary. You need mobile and you need fixed. Well, the FCC is seeking comments on a proposal to change that approach to evaluate whether some form of broadband, fixed or mobile, is available rather than requiring both. So fixed broadband already needs to be at least 25 megabits per second to be considered broadband. The FCC is proposing setting a lower limit of mobile broadband of 10 megabits per second and 1 megabit per second up to consider mobile broadband. The upshot of this proposal, if you didn't follow all that, is if you lived in an area with no fixed wireless service, under the current regime, they would say, you need attention. The government needs to step in and make sure you get service. Under this new system, if you had no fixed wireless service, but you had one wireless carrier that provided at least 10 megabits per second, the FCC would say, you're fine, you're covered, you have broadband. Nothing to do here.
So let's look at this in the kind and unkind light. And we will begin with the unkind, because I'm suspecting by looking at the chat room that that is where everybody will immediately go.
That seems to be where the chat room's going right now. By the way, your connection got a little crunchy there. I don't know if it's your mic or something, but it's a day of technical issues.
Yeah, not sure. I'm not hearing it on my end. Is it still going?
Yeah, it's just crunchy.
Here, you go ahead and tell everybody what the unkind way is, and then I'll see if I can come in and come out.
All right. The unkind way is this is the FCC trying to screw you over. They're saying, hey, you know what? We have a lot of people who are telecommunications providers who don't want to spend money rolling out fixed broadband in places where they don't think they're going to get the return. So let's let them off the hook by acknowledging that wireless service is there. And so that way that rural area is considered covered, even though it just barely gets some coverage. The kinder side of this would be to say, legitimately, wireless coverage is better than it's ever been. 5G is on the way, and a lot of people are moving to having mobile internet service only and not having fixed wired service. So why shouldn't we take that into account?
And that certainly is a valid answer. And there is an argument to be made that although wired broadband is something that is, I think, indispensable, and ultimately there is a tremendous advantage to having something that goes beyond, 10 down. If you're just looking for some kind of connectivity, that'll do you. The larger question for me is, what I would like is, considering all of the deals that these telcos and ISPs have made over the years, ensuring that they will continue to put more and more people in the game, that there be some kind of give back or promise from these companies to say, all right, we will count this as broadband if you agree to remove data caps or do something that makes that service more consistent with wired broadband.
There's a circular argument going on here that I don't appreciate, because I am very sympathetic to the idea that, hey, mobile broadband's better than it has ever been. We shouldn't just discount it as a legitimate provider of access to people. I'm all for that. That's I go down the FCC on that road right now, right with them. Like, yep, you're absolutely right. Where it becomes circular is them saying, and so we don't need to consider them separately. Great, okay. Let's see where they overlap. Wherever there's 25 megabit per second service, I mean, I know it's not really available, but it's going to be coming. Let's make sure that gets counted. And the FCC says, oh, no. It's much harder to provide speeds on wireless, so we're going to give them a different definition of broadband that's lower. And that's where I back away and go, hold on, you just said there's no difference between them. Yeah. But now you're saying because there's a difference between them, we define them separately, which to me undermines your original argument. To me, it should be about speed of access and reliability. If I can reliably get broadband access, it shouldn't matter whether it comes from fixed or wireless. I'm with you there. But then when you suddenly backtrack and go, but wireless is different, so let's redefine it. Well, then no, you don't get to have it both ways. So to me, first of all, 25 is ridiculous. In this day and age of gigabit fiber, you should say the minimum is at like 100 megabits per second, frankly, for whatever you're providing. But even if we stick with 25, you should say the wireless has to hit 25, or it's not broadband. If it's 25 for fixed, it should be 25 for wireless.
Yeah, and that puts a tremendous onus on these companies to step everything up. And considering how many are now conglomerates that own, both sides of the aisle,
sure,
I think that is not unreasonable.
All right, folks. Well, listen, if you want to keep up to date on all of this stuff, be sure to subscribe to Daily Tech Headlines at dailytechheadlines.com. It's available as a podcast. In about 5 minutes a day, we get you all the headlines of the day. You can also get it on the Amazon Echo in both the United States and the UK. We're having problems with our Google Home feed that Anchor is working on, but you can also get it in the Anchor app. That is Daily Tech Headlines, and that's a look at the top stories. Okay. Sarahah is an anonymous messaging app. It was launched by Saudi developer Zain Al Abdin Tawfiq. Sarahah is translated in all the stories I've read as honesty, although if you look it up on Google, Google translates it as frankly, although it seems to be part of a longer phrase. So honesty or frankness, you get the idea. It's about telling people constructively what you really think. There's an English and Arabic version for iOS and Android. It was launched to be used in the workplace, so that your friends and coworkers could tell you, hey, you know what? You need to work on this in a safe way where you wouldn't get mad at them and want to retaliate, but get that constructive feedback. It's been on top of the Apple App Store in more than 30 countries since July. People have been linking to their Sarahah profiles in their Snapchat stories, which is not using it for work. This is becoming a teen popular app. And in response to messages, if you're using Sarahah, as Justin and I both boldly decided to do today, you can favorite a message, you can block a person from ever sending you other messages, or you can even report a person for repeatedly sending you mean messages, but you can't respond. You never find out who sent it, and you never get to respond to it, so there's no conversation. You can withdraw yourself from search so that people can't find you unless they know your URL. And you can choose not to let any unregistered user send you messages. You could say, I only want people who are also registered on Sarahah to use this, just kind of as a speed bump, I guess. But Justin, this sounds like Secret, like Whisper, like Yik Yak, all of which had huge uptake at the beginning and then big drop-offs and eventually went away. Why do people keep trying this?
Because it's human nature. How many times have you said, I would love to know what they are thinking behind closed doors, behind my back, what I say, like, how did I do in that interview? There's just this natural curiosity that we want to know what we, by definition, can't. So the fact that that these kinds of apps have sprung up, and they have done so in many different ways, is fascinating. Secret and Whisper were all about very much the kind of a post-secret model, the blog where people would send in postcards with secrets on them. And some of them were dirty and filthy and scurrilous, and others were benign, if downright boring. Yik Yak was the opposite. It is just based on region. Everybody just writes on this filthy bathroom wall exactly what they want. And oftentimes that was hilarious, but many times it was just absolutely disgusting. This is a little bit more targeted. You have to choose to walk in and take this kind of feedback. However, as we saw with all these, as much as we think we want to know what other people think, many times we really, really don't.
Well, okay. The lazy criticism that I could give is, well, investors just, will throw money at anything. They're not very discerning. And the fact of the matter is that's not true. Investors are very discerning. And granted, somebody with a little bit of charm and a pretty PowerPoint slide can get some money where someone else might not. But it has to be an idea that at least you can argue to someone else has merit. And I guess what you're saying here, and I'll buy this, is the idea that secrets are popular and that people want to play them is true. And so all that Sarahah has to do to get people to fund it is to go in and say, look, we've figured it out. Everybody wants to be the secret messaging app that succeeds. Here's what we're doing different. And in their case, it's positioning themselves as a business app. Okay, yeah. That's a good point for an investor. It's saying you won't be involved unless you ask for the feedback. You have to be proactive about asking for it. So, okay, that's a little bit of a different spin. And there's no response. There's no conversation going on, which even on Secret, people who didn't know who they were would talk to each other. Same on Yik Yak. There would be a conversation. This is no response. You get the feedback. Nobody knows what your reaction is to it, so they can't enjoy your reaction if they got your goat. And maybe that makes it different. I'm skeptical that that makes it any different, because after a while, not having that interaction is just going to make people not bother to send feedback anymore.
Now, he just hit on a very, very interesting point, because I could see them saying, okay, well, guess what? Sarahah for Enterprise is now available, and we will custom tailor this enterprise level application that will make sure that your business is streamlined and you are no longer blind to the elements that you would otherwise roll over. This is the most effective way for people to get messages to the top of their organization, so you can know what your workforce is thinking. However, that isn't something that they can do exclusively. And if that is something that is popular, then I can see everybody ripping it off immediately. In fact,
this goes right into LinkedIn for Microsoft immediately. Absolutely. Yeah. That doesn't mean that Sarahah doesn't succeed and get acquired by somebody who's like, you've already built it. Let's and that could be a decent exit for them. I
could certainly see somebody acquiring them, but if I were somebody that was designing apps for Slack, I would be creating my Sarah Lee. Certainly not about the pastries. It's about the truth. Here's what Sarahah does do, though, and I can understand this. Imagine, Tom, that I had a box with what everybody thought of you. Would you like to look in that box?
I don't know. But sure. Yeah, most people would be dying of curiosity.
Now, what if I told you that nobody else could? You're the only person that could look in that box. You're the only person that could see, good or bad, what is in there.
Yeah, that's going to make a lot of people more comfortable.
Yeah, that's a powerful idea. And also it avoids what took down, ultimately, Secret Whisper and Yik Yak, which was that their most popular posts were the ones that were, downright libelous or just so disgusting and vile that it became a roadside attraction.
The question is, can you keep people delivering the feedback in that case? And I guess that's just a matter of pull. You have to be willing to go out and say, hey, everybody, give me your anonymous feedback, and reminding them to do it, because there's no other reward because you don't react to it. You don't get that dopamine hit of seeing what somebody said to your nice comment, much less your mean one.
Now, here's the other end of it. This is fairly similar to something like Ask FM or other like Tumblr sort of question and answer features that you got on your end and you could choose to respond and publish. There is a feature like that on Sarahah where if I got, I've gotten a few funny little, replies that I've then commented on by publishing on my Twitter. So they do allow you to have the last word.
Sure.
At least until you take it out publicly and people can respond to it. But I'm with you that I don't know, beyond the novelty, how many times do I want to anonymously submit my strongly worded Sarahah?
Will this be my latest instant messenger or camera phone where I deny that it's useful? Or will it be my Twitter where I am the one telling everyone, no, you don't get it, it's going to be big? And it is. Who knows? I don't know.
Listen, it will either be gone in 3 months, or we'll be talking about the new Facebook feature.
Facebook anonymous comments. Well, hey, thanks to everybody who participates in our subreddit. You can submit stories and vote on them at dailytechnewsshow.reddit.com. And thanks to the folks who are keeping the conversations going over in our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups Daily Tech News Show. Real quickly before we get to the emails, Roger, as I mentioned, has been looking over the various reviews of AMD's Threadripper. Overall, they seem to be positive with a few caveats. Roger, thank you for persisting through your power outage. What else did you notice about the reviews on Threadripper?
So, can you hear me? Just making sure you can hear me. Overwhelmingly, it's a positive with the caveat that the Threadripper, the 1950 XT and the 1920 XT, or not XTX, do very well with multi-threaded applications. So if you're encoding video, if you're working with an app like, say, Photoshop or Premiere or 3D Max or Blender or something else that can take advantage of all those threads, it's amazing. It's like it's speedy. It's relatively cheaper than Intel's similar offerings. But if you plan on doing something like, I just want the best gaming PC, not what you want to look for, because there are some trade-offs when you go to that many threads and you carry it over essentially two processors or two. Because essentially, especially with the 1950X, it's two Ryzen 7 cores. I think it's the 1800X or 800X that are basically paired together, and there are some issues with memory access and stuff that doesn't lend itself to single thread performance. So if you want something like that, you're better off getting a mid-range Core i5, i7. But if you're making a workstation and you are doing video encoding, or if you're playing games and you want to do something like stream out on Twitch or some other game streaming service where people can see your video and you can do your narration and all the other stuff, that's going to take advantage. Of course, it's not a bad way to go. I will say the 1950X starts around $1,000, not cheap. The next step down, the 1920, comes out at $800, but there will be a slightly cheaper version, the 1900X, which will ship, I think, later this year, and will come in around $550.
Yeah.
So
but they're all much cheaper than that 18-core $2,000 processor from Intel. So.
Yeah, and the thing to say is that Intel's processors are still fastest, but AMD is essentially offering competitive chips at all these tiers, at the low tier, at the mid-range tier, at the performance tier, and with the Threadripper, like the high-end desktop tier. So they have competitive offerings across all those fronts, which is something AMD hasn't been able to do in over a decade.
Not only competitive, but at a better price point in every case.
Yes,
pretty much
in every case. And so it's... this is a boon this is one of those things where competition is a boon for the consumer. I mean, this is lit, although it might be a Bunsen burner, it's lit a fire under Intel's corporate butt, and they are, pushing forward plans for competing Kaby Lake X processors later this year. So it's exciting to see. It's exciting to see something happen. When before you had Coke and you had no Pepsi, just Coke, this, Coke, that. It's kind of like a Chevy Ford thing. You get a little competition there. I think a lot of people will be surprised at how well AMD has managed to come up with essentially a clean sheet processor. So it's exciting news across all the front. Again, if you just want the ultimate gaming PC, this is probably not the processor for you. But if you have the workload to take advantage of the cores, definitely look into the Threadripper.
All right. Thank you, Roger. Let's get to a couple of emails before we're out of here. Glenn wrote in to point out that most universities stopped using paper in file cabinets long ago and wanted to offer some insights on how Sony's blockchain could be useful still in an educational setting. He wrote, blockchain might have a role in identifying the student requesting the transcript or for whom a transcript is being requested. Identity management is very difficult, a problem for post-secondary institutions, particularly online. Institutions often allow alumni to establish accounts with the usual username password system, but that is prone to the frailties of human memory, the foibles of password selection, and determined hackers. Second, blockchain may have a role in the verifiable transmission of data from the source institution to a destination institution. So, joining a transcript network like that is generally not available to businesses who may have a need for these transcripts. It's not an easy or an instant process if they do want to join those transcript networks. An implementation of blockchain might provide a means of being able to open up the network to other participants without sacrificing the security and the integrity. Now, that was Glenn's somewhat skeptical look at the Sony blockchain. Justin, we got another email that was very excited about it.
You're right, Tom. OMG, writes that Charlie dude. I love this idea. As an employee of a college who frequently deals with faculty transcripts, this sounds like it would improve our workload. As part of our accreditation, the college has to prove instructors are properly accredited in their subjects to teach. To do this now, we have a very time and people-intensive, aka paper trail, where the instructor requests a transcript that's sent to a specific person in the department who verifies that the employee is credentialed in the subject and can teach the class. Deep breath. Once it's accepted, the stack of paperwork goes to the credentialing committee, who checks it out again and then signs off on it. A mistake could cost a college their accreditation and the ability to offer accredited degrees. Yipes! Years ago, I watched a neighboring school lose their accreditation, and employees and other higher ed schools stop accrediting their student transcripts, and eventually the college had to close because they could not fix the issue in time. Having a lockdown system that's instantly verifiable and hopefully paperless would be a huge boom to colleges and a big time saver. Love the show.
So there you go. For the folks who are working in places where they have gone paperless, there's a lot of issues that blockchain could solve in the digital transmission. And then folks like Charlie are working in places where they're like, yeah, you know what? It's easier to do paper, but it ain't easy. And it's fraught with peril, it sounds like. So thank you guys for sharing your expertise with us. We appreciate that. Got the smartest audience in the world, and you two are examples of that. And thank you, Justin Robert Young. As always, what do you got going on before we're out of here?
Well, everybody can always follow me at twitch.tv/Justin R. Young, streaming 5 days a week, playing Hearthstone, doing all the podcasts. If you like pro wrestling, politics, storytelling, comedy, or anything in between, then go ahead and follow me on Twitch, twitch.tv/Justin R. Young or justinryoung.tv.
Hey, thanks to everybody who gives a little value back for the value they get from this show. That's how we are in business. In fact, if you're at the associate producer level on our Patreon, look to your feed or inbox for this week's exclusive column on what I think the future of online TV is going to be. Thanks to everybody who supports us at patreon.com/DTNS. Also, a shout out to Rob Reid. I'm co-hosting a new limited podcast with him in support of his book After On. And the episode about video games as medicine with Adam Gazzali is out right now. You can check that out at after-on.com. Send your picks to feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com. You can find more picks at dailytechnewsshow.com/picks. Our email address is feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com. We're live Monday through Friday at 4:30 p.m. Eastern, 2030 UTC at alphageekradio.com and diamondclub.tv. And our website is dailytechnewsshow.com. Back tomorrow with Dr. Kiki and Len Peralta. Talk to you then.
This show is part of the Frog Pants Network. Get more at frogpants.com.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
Boom. Good show. That was jam-packed.
Navigated through some tech waters too.
Yeah. Thank you guys for persisting. That definitely worked.
Yeah, it was unfortunate because right when you came back, Justin, I heard a loud buzzing noise from the outside, and I think that might be, I don't know, it's not sure if it's a transformer or something. I checked my fuse box or my breaker box, and all the circuit breakers seem to be all right, and I don't smell ozone or smoke. So I'm assuming it's a neighborhood transformer junction or something.
Yeah, probably something blue. Did you call the power company yet, or do you need to do that still?
I still need to do that.
Okay. Well, you could take off, man, if you need to. Go take care of that stuff.
Yeah, let me figure hopefully this is nothing that's going to take more than a couple of hours. I got a phone call to make soon. All right. See you guys.
All right. Thanks, Roger.
All right.
All right. So titles, jury.
Yeah.
Distributed denial of service.
No, there was one that nailed it. It's this one here. Consumer Report scratches
the surface. Oh, bingo.
That's just too good. That's a one-punch knockout right there.
All right, I'm going with that. Any others in there that caught your eye though?
The Fake Communications Committee, another messenger service, which don't break your arm reaching for that joke. Jesus. Scratching the surface. We have Leet Nature. Seeso long, Seeso gonzo. Hate to Seeso you go. Broadband, which is pretty good.
I don't think it's that accurate, but it's pretty funny.
Yeah.
Have your algae pie and eat it too. That's for every FCC story.
Yeah, one big Bruce Sarahah.
Oh, actually, like broadband aid solution.
That's good. In Russia, Kaspersky updates you.
That's the required Sarahah smile. Good Hollow Notes reference. If nothing else.
Although my here, I'm gonna put it in here now. Is
Dark Redeemer had scratching the surface too. So there's two, KV and Dark Redeemer both had versions of that. What are you doing?
Sarahah.
And I got more hits than Sarahah. Oh.
Mine is got more quips than Sarahah.
Like Fred Flintstone running around with bald feet.
Anytime I can work in a Beastie Boys reference.
Heck yeah. Especially that one.
And remind everybody exactly what age and demographic.
That song reminds me of driving around at night in the countryside around Greenville, visiting the bars, because Greenville was still a dry town at the time, so you had to go out in the county to get to a bar. And listening to that album on cassette tape in Mark Juergen's car.
Oh, wow. My best memory of that song is at my high school. They had a yearly male beauty pageant.
Uh-huh. Of course.
It was the Nights. It was just called Nights when I was there because it started in the early 90s, and it was Nights of the 90s, right? And so I forget how they selected the guys. It was like the girls in student government would select the guys that they wanted to be in, and because I was funny, they would get all the football players.
The quarterback,
like all those guys, and then they would get a few jokesters, just to spice things up. And so I was one of the funny guys, and I predictably kind of like made a little bit of a mockery of it, where there's one thing where you presented a rose to one of the girls.
Oh my gosh.
From student government, right? And so the art was how elaborate and fun you could make your presentation of the rose to the lady, right? And so everybody, some guy would come in with like a little remote control car that would bring the rose, right?
Sure.
But always the most go-to move was to have a younger sibling, as adorable as possible, come bring you the rose, be like, do the fake, like, oh man, I forgot the rose, right? And then
wait, can anyone help me?
Wait,
adorable 9-year-old Jimmy is here.
So I had my little brother who was far too old to be adorable, because I had to be 16 or 17. He was 13, right?
Right.
Big sign that said Justin's little brother, and he brought the rose, and then I was like, no, it was supposed to be it was a bouquet. Does it bring a bouquet? And he just like kept waving to the crowd, and so I punched him, and then I kicked him, and I would have spit on him, but they told me I'd get ejected if I spit on him on stage. And so that was one of the things I did. I forget what else I did. I know I did it in Aikido roll.
I have to say, the seeds of your shtick are apparent in this, even at that young and tender age.
Yeah. So I won, not the judges' ruling, but I won audience choice.
Yeah, you didn't win the electoral college. You got the popular vote.
I got the popular vote. And so I won ladies' choice. And so I made my triumphant exit of the South Plantation High School parking lot in my 1983 Oldsmobile, jamming to "Hey Ladies." I felt like I had earned it. It was a very exciting moment.
Wow. See, because what you did is you took the dominant paradigm that was unoriginal, but you subverted it to make it comical.
Yeah.
And then introduced uncomfortable, hilarious violence.
Exactly. And what I wanted to do was keep doing it until somebody had to like pull me off him.
Wait, how did you know spitting would get you? Did you have to run this idea by somebody beforehand?
Yeah. Well, because my brother had to be backstage and he didn't like the kid. And so they made us go over specifically.
What are you going to do? Yeah. Okay.
I had already like joke run for student council and stuff like that. Like I had done a bunch of dumb stuff before. And so they were like, you need to tell me what you are going to do. Not do exactly what you tell me you're going to do. Kick you out, or we're not going to let you on. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And then like, I think it'd be really, really funny. My brother's cool with it if I spit on him, and they're like absolutely not. It's enough that we're letting you get away with fake punching somebody on school grounds.
I bet they wouldn't do that. I bet they wouldn't allow that anymore.
Now, yeah, I don't know. I wonder if they even still do it.
Well, they might not do the whole concept anymore, but fake violence is probably not.
Somebody, I'll tell you what. Somebody, if anybody listening has ties to South Plantation High School, I would love to know whether or not they still do nights. Because a male beauty pageant now seems like something that might, I don't know, it might or might not, because it was also like, it was kind of a subversion of a kind of Southern sort of like debutante ball sort of thing to begin with.
Right.
To have a male version of it. So I don't know, maybe that's actually aged well in an era where we are flipping gender norms.
Possibly. Well, hey, stick around, Justin. I have a question to ask you off the air.
Sweet. Yeah.
But I'm going to wrap the broadcast right now, if that's cool. Thanks, everybody, for hanging out with us, as always.
Sweet.
We'll talk to you later.